Hello and welcome to the business programme. I'm Liz Hay and joining me in the studio is my special guest Nicky Lloyd Greame, owner of the Stress Specialist and co-owner of Engage Potential, both companies based here in Yorkshire. Nicky is a stressless coach, an NLP master practitioner and trainer, a hypnotherapist and is trained in cognitive behavioural therapy and counselling. And I've invited her onto the business programme to help us explore the importance of mental health and well-being in the workplace. Hi Nicky.
Hi Liz.
And welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
In your own words, why do you think it's important that we continue to spotlight mental health and well-being at work?
It's an ever-increasing problem. I mean, it's often been described these days as an epidemic, and I think if we don't keep highlighting it, as much as the profile of mental health is certainly increasing and awareness about it is increasing, there's still a lot of work to do. And I think we need to nip it in the bud as soon as possible, really.
And how big is the problem, Nicky? And can we fully appreciate the scale of the issues? Or have we still got this hidden culture when it comes to addressing mental health and illness at work?
The problem's huge, really. I mean, mental health in general, particularly stress, anxiety and depression, is currently estimated at costing about 12.5 million working days a year. So just at work alone, you can see the scale of the problem. I was reading a study actually just today that's just come out, the biggest stress study that's actually been done in the UK to date, and it's been done by the Mental Health Foundation. And the current statistic is 74% of people who were questioned on the study said that they had experienced stress to the point of being unable to cope. And that's huge. And obviously, you know, if we're not dealing with that, then potentially that's 74% of the workforce going on sick later down the line. I actually think the problem needs dealing with earlier than that, earlier than people going to work, but it's not something that can be ignored in the workplace either.
And how prevalent is stress in our everyday adult lives? And are there any types of things that are really making it worse in the working environment?
Without meaning to go into too much detail about stress itself is a physical response in the body, which we need in order to survive. Stress triggers, however, they're changing on a day-to-day basis. Our brain still is using the template that, you know, I guess the 2 million year old brain that we had before, where the stress response was initially relevant, particularly in relation to cavemen. If you think escaping from saber-toothed tigers, these days, stress is just all around us, or stress triggers are all around us. They don't look like saber-toothed tigers, so they're not as obvious. But when you think of things like mobile phones, social media, the fact that we're expected to be on 24/7, we need to start identifying what those triggers are and how we can stop responding in that kind of prehistoric way to them.
And what coping mechanisms are people using to handle stress? And are these coping mechanisms helping or harming their well-being?
I would say the most popular coping mechanism is sadly alcohol.
Right. Okay.
Certainly with the clients that I see, it's the easiest and simplest and most common. You know, even our brain sometimes you'll be like, you've had a stressful day. You know, it's almost culturally accepted to say, oh, I need a glass of wine tonight, or I need a beer, or I need a pint, things like that. Or we go on holiday and we tend to drink every day. Alcohol, food is another one that's a common strategy. Perhaps increasing smoking if you're a smoker, or even taking up smoking. They're all probably the three most common strategies that I come across. The downside of those is all of them put additional stresses on the body, and whilst they may feel like they're helping short term, the longer impact of that is they're actually making things worse.
And how can we best communicate with the employers so that improvements can be made in the workplace? And is there a role for occupational health to play?
I mean, as I said before, I think education needs to start sooner than perhaps work, but in the workplace, I think employers really just need to look at their absence figures. You know, we've got 49% of absences are down to mental health. You know, so something needs to change, and a lot of that probably is cultural. We need to stop rewarding people that work you know, overtime and through their lunches and whatever else. And I'm not dismissing what they're doing. They're obviously achieving great things, but actually we should be recognising that people need those breaks and actually rewarding the people who can get the work done and still have the breaks. We shouldn't be encouraging people to think that this is the only way that they're going to get some recognition at work by just working overtime, having lunch breaks, taking holidays. The amount of people that don't take their holiday entitlement is quite surprising. I've been into a few companies and you know, they're always carrying holidays over and losing them because they feel they don't have the time to take them. Occupational health for me generally only get brought in when people have been off or they're struggling. And maybe they could take more a proactive approach and making sure that health and wellbeing is part of the induction process, part of the ongoing training and development of staff. That would be a great way of ensuring that when you're bringing in people and the people that you're coming in are looking after themselves as well. It's not just down to the employees to look after the employees. You know, everyone has a duty of care to take care of themselves as well.
Is there anything, Nicky, that we can do to help ourselves and others? So if we've got colleagues in an office environment and so on, what can we actually be doing ourselves to improve the situation?
Again, it's down to awareness. Listen to your own body. Your body will tell you when you're starting to feel stress or you know, slightly overwhelmed. Take your breaks, make sure you eat properly. It's the real basics. Sleep. Now, we know that it's difficult to sleep when you are feeling stressed, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be going to bed. That doesn't mean you shouldn't still try and keep in that routine. You know, just because you can't do it once doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying. Take your holidays, talk to people, seek help if you need it. You know, there are coaches and counsellors and all kinds of people out there who can help you. It might be that, you know, even just going to the gym would help, or taking a walk, taking a breather, those kind of things. You know, if you see your colleagues going out to smoke and you don't smoke, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to go out and still take 5 minutes, because actually if you spent that 5 minutes deeply breathing, you'd get back to your desk in a much fitter state and help, you know, a much healthier state. And when you go home, you know, carry that through, do some research, figure out what it is that works for you to de-stress you, and do more of that. Don't focus on the stuff that's stressing you, focus on the stuff that makes you feel better, because that's actually the mistake that most people make. They think when they're stressed, they're focusing on what actually is making them stressed. And actually those stresses are going to keep coming and coming and coming. That won't help. You need to work on building your resilience. So what is it that you're not doing that actually does help you feel better?
So focus on those things that make you feel better rather than the triggers of the stress in the first place. Excellent. Thank you, Nicky. It's been really insightful, and thanks for joining me.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Now that's all we have time for on today's show, but do join us again next time on the Business Programme.